And I'd like to thank all our partners for helping get the word out about this webinar. And we deeply appreciate your support, and we look forward to continue working with you to develop our relationships. So CCA's just celebrated their 10th anniversary. Many advocates on this call have worked pretty hard to help bring them into existence and continue to advocate at the legislature and the CPUC. So how is CCA's doing? This is the first in a series of webinars addressing the issue. We're calling it the Scorecard Project. Rooftop solar is at a crossroads. As soon as middle-income folks could begin to afford solar, the CPUC, as California Public Utility Commission, bowed to the wishes of utilities to dramatically cut compensation for new rooftop solar. A challenging time for rooftop solar when we really need rooftop solar. So how are CCAs addressing rooftop solar? Cal Poly Initiative for Climate Leadership and Resilience researched the topic. Before I turn to them, I felt it was important to ground ourselves in the importance of rooftop solar and the role it needs to play in California. So we'll first hear for Dave Rosenfeld with the Solar Rights Alliance. We request during the presentation you put your questions in the chat. We'll read as many as we can after the speakers are concluded. Anything we don't get to, we will try and respond to. And we'll have a poll question at the end, solicit some feedback on what we might do for the next webinar. With that, let me introduce Dave Rosenfeld. He's the executive director of the Solar. He's been an important voice for solar in our state, and I'm pretty sure that not for him, I would be paying a monthly fee to PG&E, a solar tax, just for the right to produce my own power. Dave has been a community organizer for 20 years and believes people power is the best way to overcome special interests. Prior to joining the Solar Rights Alliance, successful statewide ballot initiative can restore career tech education for high schoolers. Before that, he led a 440,000 member public interest organization that successfully worked to reduce health insurance premiums and combat government. With that, I would like to turn it over to Dave.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that really kind intro, John. I want to thank the SLO Climate Coalition and the United for Central Coast Action for hosting this webinar, inviting me to be on. And so let me just blaze through, spend about 10 minutes just making the case for just why should we keep rooftop solar growing. I mean, it's kind of a nice group here. So if I could just get a thumbs up that you can see these slides, that would be great. And there we go. We got it? Okay. So let's do it. Why should we keep rooftop solar growing? And, this is, and I'll just start by just showing, this is outside of the Capitol, the state Capitol. There were 1,000 people that gathered to, basically demand that last December that the state not gut rooftop solar, not impose a solar tax. And part of the things that went on was that we chalked this message on the street outside of the state Capitol. So this is a sentiment that's very popular in the state. So let's just go through why in short order. First is just that people ought to have more control over their utility bills. It's always been the thing up to this point where you just go, well, it's just always going to be the case that some people aren't going to be able to have pay their utility bill. They're going to have to make choices. And we're at now a point where we have a technology that should not have to choose anymore between paying their utility bill and buying groceries. So that's basically reason number one. Second is blackouts. There is no solution really to blackouts. We're going to have them. They're part of the new normal. And solar powered batteries powered by solar are the option for both households and entire communities to protect themselves from blackouts. It's really actually the only solution that's working right now. Large solutions, we can do that, but they're very expensive. They're going to take time and they're not going to work well. We should do those things at the expense. Third is that California has really, really big clean energy goals. And the state itself, this is from the California Energy Commission, says that in order to get off of fossil fuels onto 100% clean energy, California is going to have to triple its solar and wind capacity and increase battery storage by a factor of 8. And so you might go, okay, well, can't we just get that solar from and wind from solar farms and wind farms? The answer is no. And we're going to get into that in a moment, why rooftop solar is a really key part of that. And one thing I want to point out is we're not against large scale solar. We need large scale solar. We need large scale wind, but large scale renewables do come with consequences. And I use this cartoon to kind of illustrate one of the really big consequences from large scale renewable development. We're going to have to do it. It's part of, there's just everything comes with a trade-off. But if we could minimize this, that would be great. And rooftop solar is a big part of how we can mitigate that impact. So that's another reason. Going back to the state's goal of tripling the amount of wind and solar, we are not on track right now to hit the amount of gigawatts that we're going to need by 2045 to get off fossil fuels. This is the current pace before the CPUC gutted the rooftop solar program. This was the current market pace. And then this is the pace that we need to hit. We need to get to this bar by 2045. And this is where we're on pace to go. So we actually need to speed up all forms of solar, in order to be able to get there. And we're not at that pace right now. So we need to speed it up. And rooftop solar is a key part of that. So this is the distribution right now of utility scale solar versus rooftop solar. The utility scale is the blue, and the rooftop is the orange. And so you can see there's more utility than rooftop, but rooftop is a really big chunk of it. And this isn't just like a one-year projection. So between 2017 and 2021, this is the amount of both distributed and large scale that was built. And then this is 20. And so you're going to need a lot of rooftop solar as part of that tripling of just solar in order to be able to fit all the pieces in the puzzle that California is trying to do to decarbonize the economy. Let's go forward. Solar is really, really popular. Of all the kinds of forms of energy that's out there, solar just has consistently now for more than a decade and a half been the most popular form of energy. And then rooftop solar, as John mentioned in the beginning, is now we're at a point where it's like accessible. It's getting accessible to everybody. There's that old myth that the utilities love to perpetuate that rooftop solar is just for rich people. And in the very beginning, that was true. But in 2021, the last year that we have data, most solar was going into working in middle-class neighborhoods. And the thing I want to point out in this chart that's on the left is take a look at this, the number 21 that got solar that make $50,000 a year or less. This is the number of households that got solar in 2021 that make $250,000 or more. Look at that. More are going solar in this band than in this band. And overall, this middle and work band is off the charts. And then if you go to this thing on the right, look at this. Like the counties that are per capita adopting solar faster than anyone else are in the Central Valley or in just some of the most low income counties in the state. And that's, isn't a shock to us. But again, it's something that's accessible to everybody and it's incredibly popular. So another reason why we ought to keep it growing. And then there's just some intangibles that are just true there. And this has been measured by social scientists. Solar is contagious. If somebody in a neighborhood goes solar, then that will prompt other homes in the neighborhood to go solar, which then prompts more the community institutions like schools and churches to go solar, which then prompts elected officials to support solar. And so there is a contagion effect. It's one of the most effortless ways to drive towards getting to 100% renewable because it's something that people want to actually incorporate into their own lives if you give them the means to do so. It's more than that. It's more than just the solar. It's also that it's ubiquitous. And so obviously, like I said, we need solar farms, we need wind farms out in the hinterlands, but we have so many rooftops. We have so much spaces where we can put the solar on. We got schools and farms and commercial properties, multifamily homes, obviously your classic single family, new homes. And so that's just incredible amounts of roof space that we could be taking advantage of. And one of the other things I just love to show is that solar is actually bigger in the places where you would think you wouldn't be getting it. Like, in San Francisco, kind of the home of, the environmental movement, where people tend to be more liberal, actually has less solar per capita than out in like Kern County and in, the Central Valley. And so it's really something that's also tremendously, I mean, bipartisan doesn't even really describe it, but it's just like, multi-ideological. It's just a common sense thing that consumers really like and they want. Then there's, of course, batteries, which, we know that we need to be making the transition from just solar systems to solar paired with a battery. That's how we really supercharge the power of the solar. That's how we make that energy from the sun during the day really work in the evening when the sun goes down. And there's all this talk about large scale, which again, we need lots of large, big, gigantic batteries. But actually the largest battery right now in the world are the ones that are hanging on California's garage walls. That's actually the biggest chunk of battery storage. And we have the ability to be able to make them operate together if the state provides the right infrastructure and incentives to encourage people to do that. People are putting in solar. They want to put in solar. They want to put in batteries. That adds up to enormous amounts of gigawatts that actually make a huge chunk of what the state needs to do in order to decarbonize and solve its blackout problems. And then this is also rooftop solar saves everyone money. One very common myth that the utilities like to perpetuate is that rooftop solar is actually increasing, is one of the reasons why electricity prices are going up. As they put it, that when people don't pay their fair share when they make rooftop solar, and so that causes a shift basically in costs over to people that don't have solar. It's absolute nonsense. The biggest and most comprehensive data modeling project that has ever been done did two scenarios. One where California gets to 100% renewables using just large scale wind and solar farms going forward. And then one where California gets to 100% with everything, with large scale and also lots and lots and lots and lots of distributed energy. And it turns out that second scenario over the next 30 years is $120 billion cheaper than the scenario where we use large scale, which makes sense because the more that people are making their energy locally and distributing it and storing it and sharing it, then that reduces the number of long distance power lines we have to build and other large scale grid infrastructure. It actually is a fluid thing. Fixed costs are not actually fixed. They're fluid. And the more of the local generation that you do, it reduces the amount of fixed costs that you have over time. And that adds up to very significant savings. 120 billion over the next 30 years is about $300 per ratepayer per year. It's not nothing. And so it actually saves everyone money rather than the narrative that the utilities are telling. I will just conclude by saying, obviously, rooftop solar, it cuts into the business model of the monopoly utilities. They can't say that. And so, many people on this call will have heard some of the things that the utilities have said. And I think this cartoon really does capture a lot of the data and the facts, which is just utilities make their profit off of building lots of long distance power lines. In the case of PG&E, they goosed those profits by also spending as little as possible maintaining them. Now they're going to goose those profits by trying to underground them. And then, as a result, electricity prices go up. We have wildfire risks, and then they have to blame that on somebody. So they turn around and blame it on rooftop solar when really their business model is the problem. And so, I would just say, I'm going to leave you with this last thing, which is, okay, where could we go from here? The CEC, as I've been saying, has been talking about we need to triple all forms of solar. And obviously rooftop solar is a huge part of that, almost half. But this is NREL's projection of just total, where the sun falls in this country. And the amount of solar capacity that we have in California is astonishing. And we could do way more than just triple rooftop solar if we wanted to. I mean, there's way more rooftops. Tripling won't even get to all the rooftop capacity that we have. And nobody at the state has actually just taken a look and said, what if we really tried to maximize all the rooftops? What could we do? How much large scale cost and infrastructure could we mitigate? How much would that save the state? How much more resilience could that create? How much more savings could that create for working class consumers? And so I just leave you with just, there's the policymakers and the goals and all that kind of thing. And then there's just like the fact that the sun is up there falling down on California, and we could be thinking even bigger if we wanted to. So that's what I got for you. That's why we should keep rooftop solar growing.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Hadley Williams. She's the Assistant Director of the Initiative for Climate Leadership and Resilience at Cal Poly. She will introduce the interns. I've been fortunate to work with them as an advisor, and I've been impressed by their work. Hadley?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, John, for that introduction. Thank you, Dave, for sharing what you did. And thank you to everyone who's here and is already sharing so many questions and comments in the chat. My name is Hadley Wellman, and I am the Assistant Director for Cal Poly's Initiative for Climate Leadership and Resilience. And today I'm pleased to introduce two of our wonderful interns, Nevia Stickney and Taylor Van Rossum. Nevia and Taylor have been working tirelessly with us at the ICLR and the Climate Coalition to research the similarities and differences between the top CCAs around the state. This internship would not be made possible without the SEI Energized Colleges program, which supports not only influential student internships like this one, but also faculty and staff aiming to improve sustainability projects on campuses around the state. This project was solicited by the SLO Climate Coalition and supervised in collaboration with the ICLR. Nevia Stickney is an incoming junior at Cal Poly, majoring in city and regional planning with a minor in sustainable environments. And Taylor Van Rossum is a recent graduate from Cal Poly, and she received her Bachelor's of Science in Environmental Management and Protection earlier this year. She will be continuing her education in the fall in the pursuit of a Master's of Science as a part of the Environmental Science and Management program, where she will focus on sustainability.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you, Hadley, for introducing me and Nevia. So I'm Taylor. I'm just going to start with a little bit of an overview of our presentation. We're going to start out with a few acronyms because I know some of you might be familiar with them and some may not. So we thought it would be best to cover them so everyone is on the same page. So a CCA that you're going to hear a lot and you have already heard in Dave's presentation is Community Choice Aggregation, also called Community Choice Agencies. So these are local governments that are procuring power on behalf of residents from alternative suppliers. So they're still receiving power from the existing utility provider, such as PG&E, but they can also receive power from alternative suppliers. NEM is net energy metering, which is measuring the energy that a rooftop solar customer is creating. NBT, the net billing tariff, or also known as NEM 3.0, is the new tariff that was rolled out in April of 2023. NSCR is a net surplus compensation rate, which is basically the rate that a CCA or a utility provider is paying customers for their energy produced by their rooftop solar. VPP, or a virtual power plant, is a way of sourcing energy from all around a service area rather than in just a large solar farm. And a CPUC is the California Public Utilities Commission, which creates these NEM policies. A DAC is a disadvantaged community, which is defined by the California government, and an IOU is an investor-owned utility, such as PG&E or Southern California Edison. So first, we're going to introduce the 11 CCAs that we're going to talk about, and then we're going to go over a little bit of methodology about our project and exactly how we conducted it. Nevia is going to talk a little bit about NEM 1.0 versus 2.0 and 3.0. And then we're going to cover the programs and incentives that each CCA has offered that we found in our research, and then conclude with some results of our project. So these are the 11 CCAs that we'll be discussing. You're going to hear a lot more acronyms used to refer to these. The main key that I can give you is the first letter of each word is going to be the acronym. So for example, CPA is Clean Power Alliance. And the only tricky one is Central Coast Community Energy. People refer to sometimes as CCCE, but we will be referring to it as 3CE. So the methodology of our project was mainly to analyze community choice aggregation. We wanted to compare policies from these 11 California CCAs regarding a variety of issues. Yes. John, I think you're unmuted.
I muted him.
Okay, cool. So we wanted to compare true-up data, billing cycles, NEM policies, and also customer programs and incentives. So regarding true-up data, we were looking at what month the CCAs chose to bill their customers and how this may affect the customers. So for example, a CCA that true-ups in December may impact customers more heavily than a true-up in April, since credits that are built up in the summer months might not be able to be used in the winter months, resulting in higher bills. Also, we looked at billing cycles, so if a CCA was billing monthly versus annually. NEM policies, we did both online research and contacting CCAs to obtain this information, because a lot of the data is available for NEM 2.0 on the websites. However, since the NBT and NEM 3.0 was just rolled out, a lot of that data is not available publicly, and it is much easier to contact a CCA and ask for their predictions on NEM 3.0 than try and find that research. We also looked if customers are being grandfathered into these NEM 1.0 and 2.0 programs, and if what they're going to do with these customers as we're moving to the NBT program. And then finally, we looked into customer programs and incentives that the CCAs offered. We separated these into categories for presentation purposes mainly, so they're easier to digest and understand. But we thought it was important to look into a broad variety of programs as they more heavily impact a community and the future of renewable energy sources in general. So the program categories that we sort of separated into were battery storage programs, economically disadvantaged communities and individuals, virtual power plant programs, renewable energy sources, and peak or critical hour savings.
Okay, so here we have our comparison of NEM 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. So NEM 1.0 was in effect until July 1st of 2017, while NEM 2.0 was in effect until April 14th of 2023. Currently, customers are still under NEM 2.0, even if they registered under NEM 3.0, because utilities have till December 15th, 2023 to implement billing. However, once that happens, then they will be under NEM 3.0. NEM 1.0, which was the basis for NEM policy, and NEM 2.0 both contain a grandfather program, which basically means that if they enrolled before the deadline, which is July 1st or April 14th of 2023, then they would be grandfathered into that NEM program for the next 20 years. Under NEM 2.0, retail value credit for energy production was at an export rate. Export rates are set on avoided cost with time of export periods that match time of use periods. And then they also conduct an annual true-up net surplus compensation rate. So the net surplus compensation rate will be mentioned in the next couple of slides a couple of times. It's defined as rates determined by wholesale energy prices. This rate is used to pay customers for leftover energy. The net surplus compensation rate is calculated monthly for each IOU, and it is the simple rolling average of the default load aggregation point price from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. NEM 2.0 introduced a one-time interconnection fee and some small non-bypassable charges. It also switched to a time of use rate. NEM 3.0 saw the biggest change in policy. There is an added $15 monthly fee. Credit for excess generation was switched to an avoided cost calculator, which comes out at significantly less than retail. It also added temporary adders for PG&E and SCE customers. These adders are higher for low-income customers, and then for customers who are required to add solar by billing codes, they do not receive the adder. NEM 3.0 also encourages battery storage to load shift and discourages energy use at peak hours where demand is at its highest. And then bills are charged monthly while true-up is still annual. Okay. So here we have a comparison of current NEM export rates and net surplus compensation rates under the IOU, PG, and E. So all the export rates are pretty much the same, excluding PCE, RCEA, and SCP. For the net surplus compensation rates, Central Coast Community Energy is the only CCA with a rate that is lower than PG&E, and then East Bay Community Energy has the exact same rate. both Sonoma Clean Power and Silicon Valley Clean Energy have notably higher rates than PG&E, with SVCE doing 2 times the PG&E rate and Sonoma Clean Power doing 2 times the annual average PG&E rate. Peninsula Clean Energy and Redwood Coast Energy Authority also have higher rates by utilizing their export rate. Here we have NEM export and net surplus compensation rates under the IOU Southern California Edison and San Diego Gas and Electric. So under Southern California Edison, both Central Coast Community Energy and Santa Barbara Clean Energy have rates that are lower than Southern California Edison's net surplus compensation rate. Clean Power Alliance has a higher rate by adding 10%. And then San Diego Community Power also has a higher rate than San Diego Gas and Electric by adding 0.75 cents. Here we have our NEM true-up comparisons. As you can see, most true-up takes place during April. This is because customers are able to begin overproducing immediately and then can build up export credit to use when production is low, which is commonly in winter months. 3CE stands out here with their true-up month being in December. So this causes customers to enter in January with no credits, and then they will have to pay for their energy usage for a few months, which makes their balance typically negative until late summer. This also means that customers are likely to have unused credit when they get to December, which means they'll be getting back at less than the retail rate.
So one of our main goals in this project was to look at NEM 3.0 predictions or NBT predictions and sort of contact CCAs as to what they have to say about their policies regarding the new NBT that was rolled out. So the CCAs that we didn't receive any responses from and could not find any data from are on the top right corner of this slide. And then we included some quotes that we got through interviews and emails with CCAs that approved us to share their predictions for what NBT might look like for them. So 3CE is actively evaluating the new regulations and working diligently to determine the optimal NSCR and NEM policy. Their decisions will be made by the Operations and Policy Board by early 2024. CPA will continue to offer their NSCR rate that's 10% higher than SCE's NSCR for both NEM and NBT customers. MCE is still evaluating how to design its NEM successor policies, including how to set its export rates. Any such policies would need to be approved by MCE's governing board and would not go into effect until PG&E begins transitioning customers to the NEM successor tariff. And RCEA said we set those based on being less than PG&E's rates to encourage people to stay within RCEA's program, or they can pay slightly more for the 100% renewable portfolio, opting up. And then we wanted to cover programs and incentives that are being offered to customers through the CCAs. And I think Nevia is still gone, so I'll just continue on her slides. So these are the incentives that promote battery storage and rooftop solar. So the issue with battery storage is that initial installation costs can often be expensive, which prevents customers from investing in rooftop solar. A lot of customers also struggle to find the system that works best for them, and power shutoffs and natural disasters often make it hard for customers to rely on their solar. So CCAs are working to provide solutions by providing battery systems that allow customers to rely on their solar even in cases of emergencies. They're providing free quotes that allow customers to find the best system for them and also working to reduce initial costs, encouraging more to invest in solar for their homes. So Nevia sort of separated these into like 3 different types of battery storage programs. So there's discounts, credit incentives, and quotes. So discount programs is SBCE's Simplify program, which is a collaboration with the company Simplify, which gives SBC customers discounted cobalt-free batteries for a 760 to 6,840 discount on 15.2 kilowatts and 136.8 kilowatt batteries. These batteries can be charged when electricity is cheapest and utilized during peak hours. SPCE has the Santa Barbara Home Power Program, which covers cost of customized solar panels and storage systems. It requires no credit check or financing to apply. SCP has the Self-Generation Incentive Program, which provides financial incentives through tiers. Higher tiers are for customers in high fire threat areas or customers who have experienced 2 or more public safety power shutoffs. So these are areas that are very prone to fire in California. Credit incentives include MCE's Solar Storage Credit Program, which offers credits of $10 a month for 7 to 20 kilowatt hour systems and $20 a month for 20 kilowatt hour systems. And then a quote that we wanted to include was from CPA about their solar marketplace system, which provides customers free solar and battery storage quotes. And then continuing programs that promote battery storage and rooftop solar. A lot of CCAs collaborate with a company called Sunrun, and they provide battery energy storage projects as well as photovoltaic systems. So EBCE has the Solar and Battery Backup Resilient Home Program, where they partner with Sunrun to offer battery storage systems at already quoted and pre-negotiated prices for customers. And if the customer goes through Sunrun to install it, they receive a $500 Sunrun gift card. PCE has the Solar and Battery Backup Program, formerly known as Power on Peninsula, where customers can qualify for $500 when installing solar and storage. These batteries help residents to maintain electricity when the grid is down through backup power, therefore promoting resiliency within the grid. Extra effort is made for vulnerable communities, and through Sunrun, customers can find a system that best suits their needs and receive installation and continuing services. SVCE has Lights on Silicon Valley, which encourages storage by helping customers maintain power during grid outages. Lights on Silicon Valley is a program that I'm pretty sure has now been closed, so it is no longer open to customers. But it used to have Sunrun help customers find a system, install, and enroll. And then if they went through Sunrun, they would receive a $500 rebate as well. Okay, and then one of the programs that you'll see throughout every CCA that we cover, that they have some sort of program in this area, is incentives for economically disadvantaged individuals and communities. So a disadvantaged community is defined by California SB 535, and it was defined in June of 2018. We included a map on the slide that shows the map of disadvantaged communities in California. And so these are marginalized groups that often have less access to rooftop solar due to high upfront costs, limited access to tax credits, and housing limitations for installation. So they may not live in housing that has access to rooftop solar to be installed. There are lower income families that may not have the means or access to renewable energy choices in their area due to lack of development projects. And so CCAs are working on programs to help these individuals, regardless of income, have the option to switch to renewable energy sources at a more affordable price. This way they can make a healthier choice for their family and the future. So we also separated these into types of programs we were finding, and the main one was a bill reduction program. So you'll see CPSF, EBCE, and PCE have a very similar program where a customer living in a designated DAC, and if they're eligible for CARE or FARA acts, can receive 100% renewable energy at a 20% discounted rate. CPA and MCE also have a very similar program where a developer and a nonprofit or a sponsor can partner on a project, a development solar project, as long as it is in a DAC area. And for MCE, it is specifically the top 25% designated DAC areas. SVCE has the Payment and Homeowner Assistance Fund, which gives income eligible customers mortgage and utility bill assistance on their homes. And SBCE simply offers more carbon-free energy at the same rate as SCE, so customers are able to pay the same amount but receive cleaner energy. So the last three categories that we separated this program into were maintenance, societal, and energy projects. So for maintenance, Clean Power SF has the solar inverter replacement program, where customers on the CARE or FARA rates that own a low income incentivized Go Solar SF system are able to receive up to $3,000 in rebates for this system. PCE is the home upgrade program, which provides income qualified customers with home repairs and upgrades at no additional cost in order to electrify their homes. More societal based programs in this area were MCE's Community Power Coalition, which addresses challenges faced by historically disadvantaged communities in the area. And a unique one is RCEA's Food for People, which donates $100 for every RCEA customer with a business account that schedules a consultation on behalf of their business. And then energy projects, 3CE has the new construction electrification program, where they're working towards electric housing for affordable housing developments, farm workers, and accessory dwelling units. And SDCP has the Community Clean Energy Innovation Grant, which awards up to $45,000 per project towards incorporating energy efficient upgrades. Is Nevia back yet? I don't think she is. Okay, I'll just keep going. So the incentives that promote resilience with rooftop solar. So resilience is really important because it allows solar systems to better support communities during natural disasters and power outages. And it also decreases stress and allows these individuals to generate their own energy rather than being reliant on a utility company. I think Nevia is back, so I'll let her continue if she's ready.
Yes, sorry about that. Okay, so these incentives we felt like were important to note because by promoting resilience, solar systems can better support communities during natural disasters and power outages while acknowledging community specific vulnerabilities, whether a community is more susceptible to wildfires, flooding, etc. So Peninsula Clean Energy has their solar and battery backup, which helps customers to maintain power when the grid goes down by allowing them to save energy in batteries during the day and then use it in cases of emergency. And then extra effort is made in more vulnerable segments of the population, specifically medically vulnerable residents. Then Santa Barbara Clean Energy has their Clean Energy Resilient program, which works to combine local energy and solar panels with their 100% green or 100% smart program. And then customers that generate their own energy can receive credits up to 2 times the NS or the net surplus compensation rate. And then lastly, Silicon Valley Clean Energy has their Community Resilient Grant Program. This one's pretty noteworthy because it gives funds to individual regions, which allows each region to use funds to where their vulnerability is. So this program invests over $5 million to regions to reduce the impact of power outages from natural disasters. And then these regions can use funds based off specific needs. Next, we have our programs that promote a virtual power plant. We looked into this because virtual power plants are a collection of energy resources that work towards making clean, affordable power. By combining a variety of energy sources, it allows to create a more stable grid. So Marin Clean Energy has their pilot virtual power plant, which is located in Richmond and led in collaboration with the Zero Net Alliance. So under this program, businesses and homes can receive low to no cost energy efficiency and equipment, but the current program is invite only since it is fairly new. Then Peninsula Clean Energy has a collaboration with Sunrun where they provide discounted solar panels and systems that can be connected into a virtual power plant through Peninsula Clean Energy. Redwood Coast Energy Authority has their Swell Energy partnership. This partnership helps to create a network of distributed energy resources to increase grid support and resilience by decreasing demand. And it also works to provide an $1,000 incentive for those who join this partnership. Lastly, we have the Clean Power Alliance Power Response, which is a demand response program that is a form of a virtual power plant. And through communication with CPA, and asking them about their plans for a virtual power plant program, they mentioned that they're actively considering additional virtual power plant programs. at this time.
Okay, and then we also looked into programs that are promoting municipal solar storage and resilience. So this is important for our community to be prepared in a world that's beginning to face the continuing effects of climate change. So the ability to store clean and renewable energy allows more people to end their reliance on non-renewable fossil fuels. Backup energy sources also allow vital community centers to have access to power in the face of natural disasters when regular power lines and the grid may not be running. So we separated these into 3 areas as well. So development projects, EBCE has recently signed 9 contracts to develop wind, solar, and energy projects in their service area. Battery storage projects, 3CE has 6 grid-based battery projects going on right now, and they're also pre-qualifying developers to distribute batteries. CPA, as Nevia mentioned, has the Power Ready program with backup battery storage at essential community centers. PCE is working with municipalities in San Mateo County to place solar photovoltaic systems and storage systems at the homes of medically vulnerable residents and public facilities that can act as emergency shelter locations or EOC facilities. And then there's also 2 feed-in tariff type programs. MCE provides incentives for energy suppliers to develop 1 milliwatt to 5 milliwatt projects with fixed 15-year contracts and a price per kilowatt hour. But they must have a defined project size. And then SDCP buys energy from their customers and then redistributes it into the grid, thereby making their energy more diverse and local, which is also sort of a form of virtual power plants. And then we wanted to highlight in one of our interviews with CPA, they announced that they will be launching a battery rebate program in the first quarter of 2024 with added incentives for low-income customers. So we also looked at programs promoting renewable energy sources in general. And one of the main ways that we saw that the CCAs were doing this was through business promotion. So if a small business signs up for a CCA and the 100% renewable energy option, they often can receive promotional materials as well as be listed on the CCA's website and become a leader in the community for renewable energy. So the CCAs that are doing this are MCE's Deep Green program, SDCP has their Power 100 program, and then CPA has the Green Leader program. And then development and electrification projects that are promoting renewable energy, MCE takes half of their premium that the customers pay for Deep Green program and invests it into local projects within their service area. PCE has the EV Ready program where they're investing $16 million into local charging ports and $10,000 in loans for electric housing upgrades. RCEA has the Go Green financing for energy efficient housing upgrades, and SVCE has the Future Fit Homes, which allows up to $8,000 in rebates and $5,000 more depending on income for electric upgrades for their homes. And SCP has local developers that are building 6 milliwatts of local solar.
So the last incentive that we looked into were incentives for peak and critical hour energy savings. So we found 3 categories that we wanted to highlight when we were looking into these incentives. The first being backup programs. So Redwood Coast Energy Authority has their community grid program. So this program encourages customers to provide backup power during grid outages. And then the SBCE Santa Barbara Home Power Program allows customers to store and generate clean power to protect themselves from power outages. And this program in particular is noteworthy because it requires no credit checks or financing, which allows it to be more accessible to a variety of customers. Then we looked at peak hour rewards. So CPSF has their peak day pricing program. So this program rewards customers for reducing their energy usage during the hottest days of the year. Specifically, they ask you to reduce 6 to 12 days from 4 to 9 p.m. on their most hottest days of the year for a compensation rate of $1.50 per kilowatt. Marine Clean Energy has their peak flex market, which pays $2 per kilowatt to energy load or shift demand during peak hours. Then we looked into the Silicon Valley Clean Energy emergency load reduction program. So this program pays $2 per kilowatt for customers to reduce their energy during emergencies when the grid is most constrained. Lastly, we looked at critical hour awareness. So SDCP has their collaboration with OHM Connect, which lets you know the most critical hours in the week where energy will be at its most expensive, so you can reduce your energy usage during those times. And then customers who sign up for this program can earn up to $50 just for signing up. Then the SCP Grid Savvy Rewards gives customers choices for how they can reduce their energy bills through alerts and smart devices. And then by enrolling today, customers can receive $25 for signing up.
All right, so I know that was a lot of information. We kind of threw at everyone. So we wanted to do a little conclusion with wrapping it up, and we made some graphs that are sort of more digestible and easy to look at. So we actually made two versions of this type of table, but this one is showing all 11 of the CCAs and the first 4 programs or incentives that we talked about. And if a CCA has a program in that area, it's highlighted in green with the name of the program. And then if it's in yellow, it is planned or something that we learned in our interviews with the CCAs. And if there is no program in that area, then we left it blank. And then this is just the last 3 programs or incentives that we talked about. So this one is separated into 2 pages. And then we wanted to condense it all into 1 page, so everyone was able to look at it more easily and compare all the 11 CCAs and all of the program areas that we talked about. So for this one, if a CCA does not have the program, it's in an X, and then a green check mark means they do. And then a yellow circle means it is planned or going to happen in the future. So in conclusion, our work these past few months has focused mainly on research and data collection from the 11 CCAs that we have discussed. We looked into their policies regarding NEM and programs and incentives that they offer to their customers. We found it was often hard to collect all the information we were in search of, and contacting CCAs with questions helped to provide some insight for those CCAs that we did receive a response from. We wanted to report this data in a form that was easily digestible and compared, which is why our project has been consolidated in a larger scorecard format that will be shared later on. We also plan to accompany this scorecard with a research document that dives into further detail of our research and will hopefully be published in the sustainability newsletter produced by the CSU system this year.
Some of the results that we found were that some CCAs do have very strong incentives for customers in support of rooftop solar, while some do not. Some have more incentives related to other forms of clean energy, like electric vehicles. And some were also, when we were discussing with CCAs their future plans, a lot of them did have intentions to implement incentives for things that they were lacking in incentives for. Some of our questions for the future is, how will CCAs respond to the challenge NEM 3.0 poses to the economics of local solar? Will they follow the IOU's lead or continue their same rates? As we've seen through some of our interviews, some CCAs do intend on continuing their same rates, or at least plan on continuing their same differences between their IOUs. And then our last question is, are the current programs and incentives sufficient, or are there better approaches?
Thank you. I'm so sorry that we lost Nevia for a while, and during some slides you worked really hard on. We had a few questions in the chat from the CCA's attendance, and I just want to clarify, when the net surplus PG&E, it meant that was relative to what PG&E does for the net surplus compensation rate. So they're a little bit more than them or equal to them. Only a couple were equal or less. Since we have the interns plan to produce a paper about this project, and so they will reach out to the CCAs if there's any questions you had or things they didn't get right or programs that are coming or they missed. Please put it in the chat. We have someone in the chat already, or you can email me at at SLO Climate Coalition.org, and I'll make sure they get it. But I would, if I'm going to put a poll question in the app for people to respond to about where we might go next. I'd like to offer the opportunity to anyone from a CCA that would like to talk to the more global issue that of this concept of what next for solar and CCAs with the advent of the latest tariff. And I'll open up if anyone raise the hand, we can call on them. Anybody seeing any hands up? Okay. Eric, are there any questions in the chat you think we should bring to people's attention?
Yeah, thank you, John. I think the questions that were coming up, there was a pretty healthy discussion and back and forth happening. So I didn't see any come up that besides, I think, just feedback that we're getting from representatives from CCAs where there's questions or clarifications. There's a hand up from Sarah Huffman.
You call on her? I'm having trouble with my Zoom right now.
Hi, my name is Sarah Huffman. So I work with Valley Clean Energy. We're a CCA here in Yolo County, so near Sacramento County. Not one of the ones you had listed, but we're a little bit on the smaller side, so it's probably not one of the major CCAs, but as so the CCAs we work together a lot and collaborate through our memberships with something called Cal CCA, which is like a membership organization that kind of helps coordinate various activities with the CCAs. And so we do meet, and we've newly started to meet on the net billing tariff for NEM 3 and kind of collecting our thoughts on what the next steps are. I think for us, it's still a relatively new concept. We're still kind of unsure of what the billing is going to look like, what kind of data we're going to be receiving from PG&E. So the options of what we can do is still a little bit up in the air. So there's still definitely things that we're considering, and we'd love feedback specifically from customers in Yolo County, or as we talk to other CCAs, what they're thinking about and considering. But our net surplus compensation does match PG&E's wholesale and just a penny more per kilowatt hour. And so we like the idea of the net surplus compensation and continuing that in the future to be a little bit more than what PG&E provides. But what that looks like under the net billing tariff is still a big question. But yeah, if you do have any more questions, or if you wanted to reach out to Valley in particular, we could set aside some time to talk about what we're planning to do in the future.
That's great. Really appreciate that. We felt we couldn't look at all the CCAs, so I picked some large ones, some the oldest ones, some new ones, and some small ones for this. But Jay Powell, you have your hands raised.
You're muted, Jay.
Sorry about that. I got halfway through here. Great presentation. Thank you for that. One of the things that Dave Rosenfeld didn't mention in his slide is the potential of parking lot solar. And I think this kind of focused on what's available individual customers and what the CCAs are doing in that respect. But I think that why they're not developing, as an example, parking lots, which was identified by an NREL's Clean Coalition did a study years ago in San Diego as one of the largest sources we could be tapping into. Just taking that over. So that's just a question. Is that something you're going to be looking at further, what they're really doing in larger scale and aggregating by neighborhood, that type of an approach, maybe kind of like virtual power plants? Thank you.
Not sure who that question's for. Is that to the general community? Or like something we think should be researching? Maybe just Jay will reach out to us. Justin, would you have your hand up?
Yeah. Hey guys. I just had a follow-up to the question I had in the chat about battery value under NEM 3.0 and the ability to get paid for your capacity of your battery under NEM 3. Does anyone know how that system is going to work? Is that still under CPUC, figuring it out? And whether it will be better for a battery owner under NEM 3 and NEM 2, like the specifics of that compensation. Like, because I know, for example, I have a Powerwall and Tesla wrote me a check for the big grid event last summer. And I know that's a big benefit that CPUC has talked about, but it seems very opaque at this point. Does anyone know how that will work exactly?
Yeah, let me try and answer that, Justin, and perhaps Dave will follow on. The new tariff is not a simple tariff. Where now you just have a few different pricing periods. With the accelerated avoided cost calculator, there is one for each hour of each day, different for weekends and weekdays and by month. So if you add that up, you come up with 566 different potential rate categories that are fixed for 2 months, and they're going to 2 years. And you can change, or else it's going to last for 9 years and recalculate it. So that's a pretty complicated calculation for anyone to figure out, and perhaps some machines will do it for us. But you're probably going to be better off staying on NEM 2.0. But it is complicated. Anybody else want to add to that answer?
I will. I'll venture.
Great.
I'll venture into that for him. Yeah, Justin, if you're currently a NEM 2 customer, you should cling to that NEM 2 tariff for as many years as you can. There is not a way to game NEM 3 that is going to be better for you than what you have on NEM 2.
Okay, but I that's got that. So, but I guess bigger picture, just how this compensation so is it just the 566 different tariffs that are going to determine that surplus compensation? That's it? There's not like grid events that batteries get paid for and stuff like that?
Potentially there might be, if there's if there's some sort of special program that you sign up for, through Tesla's running a separate VCT program that you sign up for and they agree to pay you on that. That would be separate than what's happening from, just the tariff exchange that's happening on your billing, right? But that VPP is not going to have a different price in an. The VPP doesn't care what interconnection agreement you've signed with PG&E or SCE or FTG&E. Like the VPP program is separate, so it's not going to pay you differently if you're, you have a NEM 3 interconnection agreement, or you have a NEM 2 interconnection agreement. But your overall rest of the value of your solar system and your battery is going to it's for you as an end user, as a homeowner. It is better for you financially under an NEM 2 universe than it is under NBT, period. You're not going to be able to gain. NBT is not meant to encourage people to export energy and pay you a higher rate than you would otherwise get on NEM 2. And then the NBT program is designed specifically to try to discourage customers from having excess generation exported to the grid. But if you're going to export to the grid, you could do it in these very specific hours, and we're going to give you a little bit extra credit for it. But otherwise, we don't want you pushing kilowatt hours back to the grid, especially in the middle of the day, because we have too many. Like that is the philosophical design philosophy, like behind NBT. They do not want you to push kilowatt hours to the grid, period, in general, for majority of the day. If you're going to push some kilowatt hours out, we'll give you a little bit extra if you're going to do it from these very specific time frames. That's opposite of when your solar system usually is generating extra kilowatt hours, so you have to have a battery to take advantage of it. But you're not gonna, there's not a way for you as an individual to game NBT to be better for you financially than NEM 2. Period.
So what I hear is that there's no like statewide CPUC VPP program. There's no program that's gonna compensate specifically for grid events. It's only for the hour of the day thing.
There's the ELRP program, which is sort of, but it's not for VPP. It's just general sort of grid reduction, but it's not. They're not trying to sign individual homeowners up to participate in a battery dispatch program. Not today. You know, maybe 5 years, 10 years down the line, maybe something like that's going to exist, but that's not something that's on deck right now, or that anyone's actively planning for that I'm aware of.
Okay, thanks.
Can I step in for a second?
Yes,
Kevin,
go ahead.
Justin, the fundamental issue here is that the investor utilities and the CPUC do not want distributed energy to succeed as an integrated part of a renewable energy solution in the state of California. They are setting up CCAs to fail. NEM is set up to fail. And unless there are players like the CCAs that are stepping up and basically showing the CPUC how to do it right and essentially ignoring the CPUC, that kind of integration will not happen. And that's really the underlying issue here.
I just want to step in and say that I don't actually agree with that characterization. Of it's being intentionally set up to fail. But I do think that there are challenges, you know, out there with NBT. But I don't think it's an attempt to try to actively, you know, make distributed solar fail.
Okay, well, I think we went over our hour, and we appreciate everyone here. And I'd like to just again thank the speakers and the presentations, Dave and Nadia and Taylor and Hadley. It was just great to present this really complicated issue, and I think it's the first people to kind of put all this together. And I appreciate all the attendings, and we will be sending out the videos and a recording to everyone who's registered, and they are working on a paper. And as I said, we will try and get some additional feedback. And again, appreciate all your attendance. So with that, and those participating in the poll, I'll let you know what the results are at some point. It will proceed on from there. Again, thank you very much. Thank you all.